evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 296th take live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. We are back. Yes, it's been 2 weeks off, 2 very long weeks indeed, but it's my pleasure to welcome back some esteemed gentlemen to the show. Record-setting show once again for one of our guests. We got to always say that every time that they bless us with our presence. So, but before we get to formal introductions of our guests of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. That, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate announced weeks ago the return of Liga Privada Unico Year of the Rat spring release. It's delighted to announce the return of the much-anticipated Liga Privada Unico Series Year of the Rat, available exclusively at Drew Diplomat retailers nationwide. Kicking off its annual spring release with a fresh batch this past May, the Year of the Rat is celebrated for its rich tradition and deep connection to the story of the Florida Panthers' 1996 Stanley Cup Finals run. The Year of the Rat cigar commemorates the legendary rat trick performed by Scott Mellanby, which has become a symbol of good fortune and tenacity both on and off the ice, capturing the spirit of one of hockey's most memorable tales. Jonathan Drew, founder and president of Drew Estate, shares his thoughts. The premium cigar industry has a culture of storytelling and the brand, and of course the personal level, but it should never override the fundamentals of quality, consistency, and flavor profile. The Year of the Rat was blended in Nicaragua shortly after the release of the infamous Dirty Rat. This year's Year of the Rat features a luxurious dark Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, a Brazilian binder, and a robust blend of Nicaraguan and Honduran fillers. The cigars are meticulously crafted in a 5.5 by 46 Corona Gora size and are known for the distinct fantail cap. So check out your Drew Diplomat retailer today for a Year of the Rats. And welcome, everybody. This is our 296th take. And we are so pleased to welcome all of you tonight. If you are tuning on Facebook Live, or if you're listening to us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, where it includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, including iHeartRadio. Tonight's broadcast is courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure to download, subscribe, and review today. Gran Habano Cigars. And tonight's guests, without further ado, we welcome them. Tonight's guests are sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living United. Mr. Tripp Waldrop and Denis Tsvang of Let's Get Pairing. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
I always expect like an applause during your intro because it really reminds me, and I think it's what you're going for, of like a late night host, and I love it.
A little bit, yeah.
Really, it's exciting, and I was very sleepy before we started, and now I feel.
And now it's like rejuvenated. It's like a shot of caffeine. Which
so was Bear. It amps him up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Oh, I've there's been many shows too, like where I'm just like I'm dragging and I'm coming into it, and I'm like, I'll greet my guests. I'm like, hey, thanks for doing this, and I just kind of get myself psyched up, and you just go, and it just it
resets the energy, right?
It really does. It feels good.
Love it.
Yeah, it feels good.
Anyway, very happy to be here. Thanks for having us on again, Bear. Always happy to come hang out with you, and help you out, do a show.
Yeah,
entertain some people,
smoke cigars, talk a little this, talk a little that, a little in between and everything. But hey, in the spirit of the Let's Get Pairing guys being on, let's do a little recap. You guys just wrapped up your latest show, and what cigar were you guys smoking, and how did some of those pairings go?
Episode number 28, the West Tampa Tobacco Company Red. We weren't in love with the cigar, but it didn't kill us or anything, so we got through it.
Thankfully, guys, you're here.
The pairings worked out. I actually went, knowing that this show was coming up. I made a big boy decision, and I went all non-alcoholic beer. So I'm feeling much more refreshed than I usually am when I'm on your show. Much more ready to go. But the best pairing of the night for me was, man, their Athletic Brewing Company's Stout, All Out Extra Dark, is so good.
Nice.
It's as good as, I compared it mostly to like a Baltic Porter. It reminds me more of a Baltic Porter than a stout. It's got kind of less body than a stout, but it has that intense bitterness and all those flavors you expect. And it actually worked pretty well with that cigar.
Nice.
Smarter man than I, because I
Dennis is like, and I'm drunk, so that's fine. Oh, please tell us how your pairings went.
Both ends of the spectrum, I think, between Tripp and I tonight. Unprecedented, unplanned for sure. But yeah, really well. I had this really cool. I still have the can. It's a really cool. There it is.
Cappy snacks.
Cappy
Capybara
snacks.
fruit.
I feel like it's part of a like a cartoon ad in the 90s on Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah,
like Cappy snacks.
That looks like it for
Check
sure.
them out at Walmart today. With a little cartoon capybara. Tell me all about them.
Pairs well with all of the cigars that are obviously made perfectly for the younger ones.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, let's be clear. We're not advocating for young ones.
Of course not.
No, not at all.
Cappy snacks. So what style of beer was it? What it meant?
It was a fruited sour, heavily fruited blend. It was they called it a what was it? A fruit punch. So really very reminiscent of fruit snacks, actually.
Okay, there you go.
Like the Welch's fruit snacks. Yeah, it was great, man.
Nice. Okay. I had some fruit snacks today. We'll talk about that a little bit about my day's activities, but I ate some fruit snacks for the first time in, I don't know, about a year, but I didn't have fruit snacks before, like till when I was like 10 years old or something. Before that, when I started to have kids.
Yeah, your diet goes through a radical change when you have kids, especially once they get to a certain age.
Yeah. Because you're like, oh, that sounds good. I haven't had those in 20 years or whatever.
You're like, yeah, I'll have some Dino Nuggets, sure.
Oh, Dino Nuggets, man, I love those things.
They taste so much better than the rounded nuggets. It's a true story.
Exactly.
It's a true story. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into tonight's major point, which is always brought to you by Gran Habano Cigars from the fertile lands of Honduras. George Rico and his family put together the very best vintages for you, the cigar smoker, from value-based hits like the Corojo No. 5 to the award-winning 20th anniversary to special events and projects like Zulu Zulu. Gran Habano is about cultivating the best and making pinnacle cigars for the market. Culture, tradition, quality, premium, handcrafted. That's it. Gran Habano Cigars. All right, everybody. Well, for those of you who are fans of Let's Get Pairing, we're going to basically do a double dose tonight. And we're going to take up a different cigar, obviously, than what was spoke earlier tonight on the latest episode of Let's Get Pairing. We are going to spoke. I've been loving this company, what they've been doing, man. The resurrection of some of these old brands and stuff like that. Dynamite. I mean, and it just dynamite smoking cigars and everything. But this is the Juan de Fuca from Serafin de Cuba cigars, made by our good friend of the show, Arnold Serafin. So that's what we're going to be smoking tonight and pairing with different beverages and everything. So I know you guys have already lit up, but before we kind of go the rounds and everything, I would like Tripp. I would as another record-setting appearance on ELOSOFUMARTAKES. You're past double digits now, my friend. This is unprecedented, and will continue to be such as you keep appearing on the show. So
yeah, I just keep popping up, huh?
So
it's I'm available most Sunday nights, so it's not a tough ask for me. But I'm always happy to be here.
Appreciate it nonetheless. Well, with that honor and stuff, why don't you pick my first pairing for me? So I've got a beer and two spirits, but one of the spirits will actually be mixed. So a mixed spirit, or a beer. Those are your choices, and then obviously we'll talk about them as I pour them out and stuff.
Can I get more details on the beer? Anything? A hint?
I gave you a hint in the green room.
So how intense is it?
The hint is
based on the hint you gave. I'm guessing it's fairly intense.
It's a Dennis beer, obviously.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with the mixed drink.
The mixed drink? Okay, cool.
Yeah, because the extra water that's in a mixed drink kind of takes out a little bit of the body and I find it pairs better with the first third.
Sounds good. So we're gonna be pairing a gin and tonic. So let me grab the ingredients here. That's going to be the spirit, and we're going to talk a little bit about the gin here in a second. Got a fresh bottle of gin and fresh glass and some really fancy seltzer too. Like I was like, what the hell? I'll just go all out here. and all that.
I'm very curious to find out what your ingredient list is. I'm excited.
So, I've always liked a splash of grapefruit or lemon.
Oh, yeah. Great
or
choice.
in addition to lime. So we're actually going to go with British London dry gin with a brand called Boodles.
Cool.
Good gin.
I really, really like
Solid
this gin.
choice.
Yeah, so this is a fresh bottle. And they'll be mixing with it just a Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic and water made with natural flavors, including floral botanicals. So this is the good shit. I mean,
yes, that is the good shit. I don't have my notes in front of me for that, but I know that I can't remember what spirit company he was involved with, but it was a guy who was like VP or CEO of it might have been Bombay or
I mean, it looks very Bombay. Companies. Like it looks like Bombay Sapphire came out with this. The logos and stuff.
He left the liquor business to get into the mixer business because he felt like there was just not enough super high quality, well thought out mixers, and started Fever Tree, which, you know, initially they focused only on tonic, and then they expanded with club soda. Now they have a couple lemonades and they have a cola.
A cola?
Yeah. And it's everything they make is specifically designed as a mixer.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Well, while I get my drink on here and light up my cigar, Dennis, what have you got going with the Juan de Fuca so far, and how's it going?
I really love the spiciness, and this is a favorite cigar of mine, especially as of late. I love the spice on it. I love this rich cocoa, very dark chocolate kind of cocoa. That, you know, I tend to gravitate toward earthy cigars, very kind of rich and intense cigars, and this really nails it on all of those marks for me, even just off the first light, which, you know, as we know, a lot of times cigars take a little bit of time to develop. This one I've always loved from first light.
Nice.
I agree with Dennis. The shocking thing about this cigar is you expect one thing when you hear Cameroon wrapper.
Oh yeah.
And this cigar gives you something completely different from what you're expecting from a Cameroon cigar. It's very, I know that all of the filler is Nicaraguan. You really get that like spicy, earthy influence from the Nicaraguan tobacco. And I don't know, it's just got less of that kind of nuttiness, I guess, that I usually get from Cameroon. It's a lot spicier, a lot more intense. I'm really enjoying it so far. Are we going into our pairings too?
Well, I was going to comment about the cigar too. What I found very interesting about it is the closed foot, and then the pigtail cap. Of course, the oiliness and the toothiness of it was something that surprised me a little bit too. Of it, it just didn't. I would say that this is kind of like what's the it's a Monet. Like from afar, it looks like something pristine, but when you kind of get up close to it, you kind of see its quote unquote flaws, you know, the toothiness of it and everything like that. But from afar, it looks absolutely gorgeous. A lot of oil to it, a lot of sheen to it.
Yeah, it's a very oily wrapper. It's also very mottled. You know, it's kind of a lighter colored wrapper once you get up close, but then it has spots of much darker spots all over it. That
pockets of flavor, as if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I love the aroma on this thing too.
Very, very different for a Cameroon.
I thought the aroma in particular was really good on this. Like it just smells really good. Like before you even light it, you feel like you're gonna smoke a cigar with this, which is really nice. I don't know what you guys chose to light your cigars with tonight, but I'm actually want to toast the foot here and light it with my ST DuPont new fluo lighter here.
We're not that fancy, Bear. I used my Freestyle Live, which I got for free with a Freestyle Live pack I bought. It works pretty good. It lights cigars, sets them on fire. Yeah, nothing too fancy for me.
Gets the job done, right?
Trusty ST Bic. And
ST Dubic.
Esti Dubik is a classic jet black. I have a
piano black.
That's
Piano
the
black.
next. That's the that's what I was gonna say. That's the Nicaraguan. The Nicaraguan ST DuPont, man. That's what everyone
yeah,
carries
it is
down there.
Nicaraguan. I actually had a bit of money set aside that I was like, man, this is gonna be my thing. I'm saving money for this one lighter that I really want to get from ST DuPont, and I had to burn that cash on a new air conditioning system.
Oh,
doesn't that always happen?
I was like, well, all right, I needed it, so it worked out fine. I'll get the lighter one day.
One day. Oh man.
You're right there. You have a great point. This cigar smells so nice. The room note. We don't often talk about that with cigars. Usually pipe tobacco and other tobaccos, but the room note is really nice on this.
I'm also picking up a lot of salt, which really adds complexity to the flavor.
It is very salty. It's very salty. So
I love the minerality on it, though. It's great.
well, that's quite good and quite refreshing. And very dangerous because I don't really taste the alcohol. It's always delightful. Maybe that's what the Fever Tree is all about. It's like, well, you can pour however much alcohol you want. We won't let you taste it. I do love Boodle's Gin. I think it's to the point of the type of gin it is. It is very dry, but it does have this wonderful nutty, minty, herbaceous aroma to it that just kind of is almost kind of jasmine-esque. It's very nice. So the aroma on it is very clean and very good, and then the flavor on it is just outstanding and everything. And it pairs really well. It mixes really well with that Fever Tree. And then I also threw in a splash of grapefruit mineral water. Like I said, I like a little splash of grapefruit with my gin.
For that tonic, so an interesting thing you'll notice when you see their tonics, they have like 3 different colors.
Yeah,
I think maybe 4. In addition to the flavored ones, they have like an elderflower, a cucumber, a few different flavor options for the tonic. But they have 3
I had the
elderflower
in Scotland last year.
That one's great.
Yeah,
works really well with the
my
gin and
favorite
tonic. But you're drinking the Mediterranean, right?
correct.
That's kind of the that one is intended to let you taste the gin a little bit more. It's less sweet. It still has the same amount of bitterness as their standard tonic water, but it's kind of a little bit less sweet and a little bit more floral almost.
I mean, there's that Persian lime, I think, too, right? Or some kind of lime.
Yeah, they have a couple different lime
limes.
versions.
Yeah.
And a couple different lemon versions too. They have one called Sicilian lemonade. That's like a mix of tonic and lemonade that's fantastic. And then they also have a lemon flavored tonic water, which is just as good. It has actual lemon juice in it. It's just lemoned tonic water. Good stuff from them.
It's good. I really I mean the first few puffs of the cigar is fantastic. And I really dig and I've said this to him before. I mean, I fucking nerd out on his stuff. Like I think like the stories behind each brand are phenomenal. Like every time Arnold talks, like I'm there. Like I'm like, okay, what do you got for me, man? It's like talking to Chris Topper, you know. Arnold's
where he's got like this rich history in the back of his mind, and he knows all these stories about everything that happened 200 years ago.
It's crazy, and I'm here for it, man. Like I'm that guy. Like my but my only worry, and it's catching on, man, because the cigars are fantastic, and I think that's the key to it. My only concern is like for example, the Belody cigar, the Ehrlich, right? Cool story, right? You know, the cool story behind the Ehrlich. And I was here for, you know, it was you know, the logo is from like the oldest cigar and pipe shop in Boston, you know, and it had like a really cool story behind it. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And the cigars were pretty good too. But like I wonder like about when you have like this much old fashionedness to it, does it kind of limit your audience a little bit, right? Because for like the super nerd like me, and I'm a history buff to boot, like that's really exciting. But it seems to be doing well for him. So, and I think it's because of the quality of the cigars. Like I haven't smoked a Serafin de Cuba tobacco de Cuba cigar that I was like okay, like
Yeah, I agree.
they're
I've
all
been
pretty
super
outstanding.
impressed with all of them. And this one especially. This is my favorite of the ones I've smoked. Which
Okay,
Arnold, when he handed it to me, he was like, "You're gonna love this cigar. It's not like any other Cameroon you've ever smoked." And he was right.
The Florida Tampa was my jam from the original
Oh, I really
release.
like that one.
That was really good. I really enjoyed that.
And the whatever the Connecticut's called, I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
I still smoke a ton of Florida Tampas. Like I even bought like I think I bought 2 boxes of those. Like it was
Wow.
they're really good. I really enjoy it. But I was really excited about this release. And I mean it's just really cool story. Which we'll kind of go through here in just a second. But before we kind of talk a little bit more about this, I was curious. It does bring a point of fact. Now, this is an old Tampa brand that's been resurrected.
Most of his are. He's
and most of
very
his, yeah,
connected to Tampa cigar history.
You know, Kurt Kendall did that with old New England brands or just old brands in general. You know, he's very classic as well. But obviously there's a really big they're not doing anything that's kind of like cutting edge. I mean, this has been around the cigar industry from the very beginning, right? We have STG and Altadis that have basically split the Habanos portfolio, right? Who have cigars that are akin to old, not old or old and active Cuban brands. And then there's other companies that have taken brands, old Cuban brands or old brands and kind of resurrected them, like Pete with La Riqueza
and Fausto.
His father-in-law with Flor de las Antillas. That's an old Cuban brand. So my question to kind of kick us off as before we kind of dive into the Juan de Fuca story was what's your favorite resurrected brand that's available in the new world? And it could be for any reason. The cigar is incredible. You like the design. You like how the company marketed it. You know, open ballot here.
That's a tough question. I mean, the easy answer for me is the one I just said, Fausto.
Fausto.
That's just like, that's one of my
Yeah.
go-to cigars, hands down. I love that cigar. I always have a box on hand. And I mean, that's a way lesser known brand than a lot of them, but I just love that cigar.
It really is. And that cigar is quietly like one of the favorites of so many people. Like you said, you always have a box on hand. We had an expression in the humidor, when I used to work at in retail, it's like, when in doubt, Fausto.
Yeah.
Because it was just always going to hit. What did you try it when it was originally released? Did you like you've been a fan from day one?
So I bought the Fausto. I may have been one of the first people who even knew about it. Like, this was way before I was in media. I absolutely loved the original release of the T110. That was, and maybe still is, maybe the best cigar I've ever smoked, or at least the most enjoyable. And I didn't have a line to Pete Johnson. I didn't have his phone number like I do now or anything like that. But anytime I saw him, like, in cigar forums, there was one time, well, actually, this leads up to it. Anytime I saw him in cigar forums, I was like, bring back the T110. And then there was an event, 2010 maybe, 2011 maybe, and maybe before that. I don't even know what year it was. An event with New Havana Cigar where it was, you get to chat with Pete. So it was a chat room that Dan did with Pete, and I hung out in that chat room for hours, and I was bugging him about it, and he said, well, we're coming out with a new cigar called the Fausto next year that is the T110, just in new sizes. And I was like, yes. And then the week it came out, I bought some and I've loved it ever since.
Been smoking it ever since. I it was a cigar for me I really enjoyed. I thought I always loved Florida Santias. Like
Hmm.
I will still smoke that today. I think it's fantastic. For a while they weren't smoking as great as they are now. Like I think they're just as good, if not better, than the original release, but they were kind of hitting a lull there for a little bit. And I think it was
I
just
think there was a point where they'd never admit it, but I think there was a point where my father's cigars was going through a tough time as
Yeah.
far
Oh
as
yeah.
production.
yeah.
Because there was a couple of years, about a 2 year period, where for me just about everything I had from them was plugged. Like just constant issues with plug cigars from them, whether it was from my humidor or from a shop or right off the truck when I mail ordered it, expecting it to be dry. Um, but that all got better, and the cigars are incredible now.
Yeah. I think I think some of the best cigars on the market are coming out of that factory right now. I mean, some
Agreed.
of the best tobacco too. It's just incredible. But I mean, yeah, for a while, I was never a big fan of the Judge.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fine.
La Palencia, I I actually was probably one of the few people that was pretty good with that. It was pretty good, I thought. Um, but the cigar that I really always enjoyed, and I loved the story, I loved the branding, I thought it was really good. Um, was La Antigüedad.
Yeah.
And it just I don't think it ever caught fire like the rest of the portfolio did, or like it probably should have. Like it should have been like the sequel to Florida de los Antilles, and it should have done a lot better. And it just seemed like
Mhm.
Florida de los Antilles was just like set the bar, and then like all these other brands like La Antigüedad couldn't hit it. Florida de los Antilles, even the Florida de los Antilles Maduro couldn't hit that bar, and it just seemed like it was just like they were just kind of missing for whatever it was. So, and then
I've always
they
thought,
hit rock bottom when they did La Grana Fuerta. So,
yeah,
I cannot stand that cigar. That's crazy.
I didn't think it was bad. I never gravitate towards that cigar because it's, to me, the La Promesa, La Pulencia, and La Grana Fuerte are just so similar. And none of them I think are great, but that's me. Uh, as far as La Antigüedad, I think my thought on that has always been that it felt too much like a sequel, and that's kind of why it didn't do as well, because a lot of Florida Los Antilles was selling like crazy, and they came out with the sequel I think too soon, because people were still clamoring for the Florida Los Antilles.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, and it is a completely different profile too. So people who are probably expecting that sequel and we're actually looking forward to it, were
Hmm.
probably disappointed because I think it's a cigar that stands on its own. It's much more full bodied. It's much more full flavored. It's much more of a pepper bomb. It's more in line of that kind of Nicaraguan standard that's heavily in
Yeah,
Esteli tobacco. Even though they undisclose a bunch of stuff, but I guarantee that binder is probably Esteli. It's just it's a lot of pepper and spice. I love it. I love it. There's no criticism behind it. I think it's great. But I love the artwork. The antiquity. It's just a really cool brand that they found and resurrected. And I've always wished it could have carried a little bit further.
yeah, I
So,
agree.
Dennis, what about you? Was the Fausto your answer as well,
I
or
I liked the Fausto. It's been a while since I've had it. I'm thinking about it. Florida Los Antilles was a cigar that was my real kind of first cigar, transitioning from kind of like the typical the catalog. As I started as an early smoker, I was going through all the catalog stuff. I was really interested in all of those things. And so at that time I was just buying whatever I could buy and just smoking as much of anything that I could get. And that was, I think I remember distinctly the first cigar that I picked up, that it felt there was something different about it even before I lit it. And again, it's the band, it's the artwork, it's really cool. And I got into that. I mean, it's been years. I haven't had one in years, but that's probably my first kind of in that vein first cigar. That being said, you know I'm a weasel for a couple of cigars from Cuba that generally I don't care for Cuban cigars generally, but the Bolivar stuff, the little petit Coronas from Bolivar, always get me down, man. And I'd love to see more of that in outside of the Cuban market. Those kinds of blends making outside the Cuban market would be really cool.
Nice. So what have we got? We know that I'm drinking a gin and tonic. We'll go into the break down my ingredients here in just a second and talk about how it's pairing. But what are you guys drinking? And how's it going with how's it pairing up with the cigar so far?
I'm gonna let Tripp go because mine is a little bit complicated.
I'm going with Flor de Caña 12. I've sampled this rum a lot, had it on the show a lot. I've drank it a lot. I love this rum. I think the 12 is the perfect middle ground between the roughness of the 7-year and the restrained elegance of the 18-year. I think the 12 still has enough of the 7 to be interesting before it gets too fancy and starts to round itself out too much. And it's going great with the cigar.
Yeah, it's not too much richness though. I mean, because this cigar is pretty rich for me. I don't know how it's feeling.
It is rich on rich.
Yeah.
It's very complimentary. I don't think I'm getting away from that tonight though. With the pairings I've chosen.
I've got a little bit of a weird kind of bastardized cocktail. Let me show you. I've been sucking on this thing for a while. Can't really tell, but so a couple of things in this cocktail that
I'll call it a Negroni for now.
I'm calling it the dad joke for now. Let me explain.
The dad joke.
I got a little bit of bourbon, right? A little bottled in bond bourbon from Heaven Hill from the show earlier. You can't tell, but inside I have a couple of Woodford Reserve aged cherries. So they're cherries aged in a Woodford barrel, which is really cool. I've got some Creole bitters. So some of you may think of where I'm going with this. Some Creole bitters.
Yeah, not a Negroni even close.
So Creole bitters. Did I hear that right?
Creole bitters, similar to Peychaud's. Think of like if you know Peychaud's bitters, Creole are kind of a little more aromatic.
Okay.
I got some Updog in there, and I've also got some of this Benedictine, which is really cool. You can't really see because of the camera, but
Benedictine is kind of like a sweet vermouth, right?
Sort of. Yes,
Same vein.
It's a really unique liqueur from 1863, which is fascinating. It's got 27. It's the classic story of like we've got 27 secret ingredients, right? It's a secret sauce.
So it's like the Colonel Sanders and them got together.
Colonel Sanders. It's a guy that was like, hey, I found this recipe this guy helped me make of this weird liqueur thing. I'm gonna market it as much as I can as this like really holier than thou. Tie it to the church and all this cool stuff. And even on the front, you can see it says DOM on there. There it is. Deo. So it stands
so
for
people think they're buying Dom Perignon?
No. So it's Deo Optimo Maximus? Maximo. Deo Optimo Maximo. It's to God most good, most great. This was the slogan that was very much tied to the church back in that time, which was really cool. So I mixed it together in a kind of a bastardized Manhattan. Really the secret ingredient is the Updog in it, but.
And what's Updog for those who have not been initiated?
Not much. What's up with you? It is called the dad joke.
It is called the dad joke. There it is. I was wondering when that was coming.
I was waiting to see if Bear would take the bait or not. That was great.
But yeah, so this is officially, it's called a Monte Carlo is the official cocktail.
Nice. Very good.
Which is great, man. The sweetness on that Benedictine is really nice with the cigar.
Awesome. Well, I'm really enjoying. I just poured a little bit more. I'm really loving the Boodles gin mixed with the Fever Tree Mediterranean, which, man, I mean, there is a lot going on in this tonic, man. You can just, I mean, you could drink this by itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say frequently, but once in a while, I'll just take a bottle of that and just put 1 or 2 dashes of bitters in it, and it's awesome.
Nice. I love the Boodle story is kind of fun. They, in addition to their standard London Dry, the only other offering that they have is a strawberry and rhubarb variant, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
They're still using they're still redistilling in Carterhead copper stills, so that they can allow the botanicals to gradually infuse into the spirit and everything. So, they source their ingredients apparently from all over the world, though, which is interesting. But it doesn't contain any citrus. There's no
Really?
citrus. Yeah, there's no citrus whatsoever in Boodles. So,
That's curious.
as Boodles calls it, it was a practical decision made by the original distillers who expected a brilliant drink to include a slice of lemon or lime. So they knew that you would accompany it with citrus, so there was no point in adding it. So, the Boodles recipe contains a number of what they call traditional herbs and spices, but then they list a couple. And I have to be honest, the sage I've seen, and I've seen rosemary in some gins.
Coriander, probably.
Coriander, I've seen, obviously juniper. You see juniper quite a bit. But then one stood out to me, and I was like, what the fuck? And they listed under their traditional herbs and spices. Nutmeg is listed as an ingredient in Boodles. Yes.
I don't think I've ever heard that either.
No shit.
Yeah. In place of the citrus, maybe they use the nutmeg because it has a similar bite to it on the back end.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that could be, but God, that's such a.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So, and but they oh, and then of course they talk about juniper as well, which is kind of like the standard of all gins.
It's not really a gin without juniper in most places.
So a couple of holiday seasons ago, you know how Starbucks does these holiday brews and these holiday, cappuccinos or lattes or whatever. They had a juniper latte that they offered. A few Christmas seasons ago. It was around for Christmas, and I fucking love that thing.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good.
I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah,
in future Christmas
it was in true to form. Like it had this very, obviously juniper take to it, but it was really nice and piney, and because it was a latte, it was creamy. And so this woody creaminess in coffee, and it was really weird, but man, it was good.
That sounds pretty great.
Yeah, it was pretty baller. Not gonna lie. I'm usually just a black coffee guy, but that thing was outstanding. So I had to try it. So, but the strawberry and rhubarb is definitely an interesting take from Boodles. I almost kind of wanted
about that one.
I almost think I have to get some. Almost.
Yeah.
Not quite sure.
I'm
on the
they
fence.
sell it in a little bottle. Just so I can try it.
Apparently it's just the same botanicals and everything of original Boodles, but the rhubarb and strawberry features the taste of garden fresh rhubarb and juicy strawberries. So, but all in all, the gin and tonic is pairing really well with the cigar. It's contrasting in flavors. Obviously, a lot of brightness from the gin and tonic, a lot of meatiness, dark, really nice, full-bodied, rich flavors from the cigar. So, even though they're completely, I would say, stark opposites, man, it is still pairing really well, still nicely. Oh, awesome. Did you guys have any other pairings that you're going to be trying out tonight?
Definitely.
Oh yes, many pairings.
Okay, awesome.
I have 7.
You have 7.
You have 7?
Yeah, I thought we were doing a long show.
Of all the C's, one for each of the C's.
Exactly. In honor of Juan de Fuca and the explorer.
Yeah. Maritime master.
So yeah, let's talk about Juan de Fuca. So again, just to go back to the cigar a little bit, let's give a little bit more background on this cigar. So it was introduced at the 2024 trade show earlier this spring. Was a brand made in Tampa that traces back to the early 1900s. So according to Arnold and Serafin de Cuba, the cigar was produced up until the 1960s.
Wow.
Originally, the brand was made by Morgan Cigar Company in Tampa. Juan de Fuca is named for a Greek sailor although he doesn't look very Greek on the photo, but Greek sailor who served
I
King
didn't look
Philip.
at the photo, but he probably looks more Spanish because he sailed for the Spanish.
True.
Spanish, yes.
Yeah. Well, and when you think of Greek people, you don't think of Juan. So that's probably what
Well,
else.
did you read what his real name is?
I guess I'm getting
George
to
with
that
a
here.
J.
So
Okay, I'll let you take
Well,
care of it.
is named for a Greek sailor sued for King Philip II of Spain. He is best known for exploring the area between Vancouver Island and the Olympic Peninsula in the northwest part of Washington State. It was initially known as the Strait of Anian, which today is the Strait of Juan de Fuca. So no, actually, let's talk a little bit about that. What was his original name?
Ionis Focus. Focus. So I don't know where Juan comes from. I guess Juanas, Ionis,
Yeah.
something like that. And translated to Juan, and then Focus translated to Fuca. So he kind of got a new name when he became Spanish by military association.
What I think is really cool is that Morgan Cigar Company picked this random sailor, from literally the opposite side of the country. I mean, you can't get much further away from Tampa than the Vancouver Strait. And then, yeah, and that's they started this brand with it and everything. But yeah, I love anytime that you have a portrait on a cigar, I think it hits. I think it
It's nice.
it tells the story automatically, which is really great. And then it's just a very classic look. But it does have kind of, I don't know. I mean, it might be just because I've never seen, obviously we haven't seen the brand before, in a cigar shop shelf or anything. But it does have a new age kind of look to it and feel to it. It feels a little bit more modern.
Yeah, I definitely think he's not just using the old bands. I think he updated them to I mean, as he has with all of his, I think. Used the classic styling but updated them to look a little more modern.
I mean, dare I say, I mean, even with the story and the Strait is actually really it's really well known for the migratory species that go through. A lot of different animals go through this every year, and so the migration from the old school band to this new kind of slightly modern band is really interesting. You can tell in the way the portrait's stylized.
Mm-hmm.
It pops a little bit more, I think, more than it would have back in the 60s.
So, I talked about this earlier when I was saying how, like, the one thing I was worried about was just like what would have mass appeal with some of these more classic stories and looks and everything like that. I mean, how does that sit with y'all? Like, I mean, is that something that you go and gravitate towards in a cigar shop? I mean, do you buy into a lot of the story a lot of times? Or do you kind of buy into a lot of the marketing that a lot of people put into cigar brands today and they make them pop and the way they come off a shelf and everything like that? I mean,
for me, the way to sell me a cigar is somebody that I trust telling me it's good. That's the way to guarantee sell me a cigar.
okay.
If I get to know you a little bit, like I'm one of those guys. Like if I go to the shop and you're there and you shake my hand, I'm gonna buy your cigar and try it. Packaging is hard because I'm not sure I've ever bought a cigar based purely on packaging.
So you never bought a Gurkha, is what you're telling us? I'll be here all week. I'll be here all week. It's fine.
Not really. But yeah.
But it's different. I think you make a really great point, Tripp. It's different than it is for us with beers or spirits, where we look at a bottle or a can, we say, all right, that's really interesting. Let's get into it. At a cigar shop, it's different. I mean, this is a really nice band and it's cool. But when I started smoking, I was suspicious of these because I thought they all kind of looked similar, and the more old school they looked, I thought there's a chance this is going to be a garbage cigar because it's probably, one of 30 different people trying to, like rest on the laurels of the classy look just to make a sale. Now I think I've appreciated more, as I've experienced more cigars, I appreciate bands that are kind of like this old school. I gravitate more toward old school bands than like really flashy, very large, whole cigar bands or bands that take up most of the real estate on the cigar.
I would say that I'm kind of the same way, that I'm more likely to reach for this, not based on brand association. I'm more likely to reach for this than like a CAO Vision that's in a lit up box.
Yeah.
With a big fancy holographic label.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, it's interesting, like, because again, I think we buy like things differently too. Like there's a couple of, when you go into your liquor store or spirit store or anything, like you look and you're looking to try a gin, or you're looking to buy a tequila, for example. Some of the most hidden gems are behind really bad marketing.
Yeah.
And really bad looks. Like Coralejo is probably my favorite tequila. And I just think it's one of the most fussy labels I've ever seen. There's really not much going on. I'm really not even sure if there's any story behind the imagery or anything. But it's just so fucking good. It's just
I'm looking
really
it up
fucking good.
as you speak. Oh,
So am
wow.
I.
It's a bottle.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, that's horrible label.
It looks like something that my parents would bring me back from their vacation to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it looks like, to be honest.
But again, you make a great point that you never know until you try.
Yeah, and it's just fucking good. It's so goddamn good. But so to go to gin, for example, but again, Beefeater has a reputation, right? But there's not much to look at there. Bombay Sapphire, like, holy shit, like that just fucking sounds cool. The bottle looks cool. Like, how do you not? Gray Whale, which is another one of my favorite gins. That's just a fucking stupid name, but so you have to buy the bottle. It's all blue too.
Yeah.
And then when you get into it, you hear about all this story, like all the ingredients are sourced from California, which is really cool. Including the seaweed that they use in it. It's really cool. And then Boodles is just a fun fucking name to say.
Yeah,
but
it sounds like the name of a puppy.
Yeah, here,
or
Boodles,
a
here,
or a clown. Boodles,
Boodles the clown. Boodles the drunk clown. So, there's just things that that again, but and it's interesting because if we went into a liquor store today and no one had ever heard the name Jack Daniels, would anyone buy a Jack Daniels bottle?
No, it's so understated that I don't think they would.
Probably
so
not.
It's interesting with classic style of labeling. There either has to be superior product behind it, or it's almost like legacy. Like you've built a reputation on it. That's why Budweiser hasn't changed anything, really.
They did that one time and people got real mad.
Old Overholt is a great example of that as well. The bottle's basically the same as they've always been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's that classic brown bottle that now you associate with that brand.
Old Granddad. Jesus.
Old Granddad, yeah.
Yeah.
I drink, oh God, I don't even want to say it, but I go through a couple of pints of Granddad a week, bonded. Because that's my go-to
stuff.
It's good.
Yeah, it's great, man, and it's affordable.
It's still relatively cheap. Yeah, it's still relatively affordable, which is great. Because I remember when Henry McKenna was freaking $25 a bottle.
Yeah,
and now it's 60.
Easily 60.
Same stuff. So crazy. But it's interesting, how does the classic label look? You have to have superior product, or you have to have built a reputation.
It's demographic.
Right.
With cigars, I think even more than whiskey, you have to have a superior product.
Right.
A cigar, you can only sell so many cigars with a beautiful label and bad cigars. Are there cigars that we think are bad that people really like? Yes. But somebody has to really enjoy the product if they're going to keep buying it.
Right.
Otherwise, you make one sale, which doesn't matter. Does
Yep.
not make a difference to your bottom line.
And I think that's why Arnold's having some success, is that these products are really superior. The quality is really good. And the flavor's really good. This cigar's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So good. So before we get into our next pairing, let's go ahead and get into our United presidential trivia segment, which is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the highly acclaimed Atabey Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. So, I pulled a funny one out just because I knew Dennis was going to be on the show, and I was like, man, this is definitely a Dennis type question. So here we go.
What is McCarthyism?
Not that literal. Not that literal. Which U.S. president had a daily ritual of skinny dipping in the Potomac River?
Wow.
Was it A, Andrew Jackson, B, John Quincy Adams, C, Teddy Roosevelt, or D, Lyndon Baines Johnson?
I know who's got my vote.
Go ahead, Tripp.
This seems like a very Teddy Roosevelt thing to do.
Doesn't it though?
Dude was a wild man, and it sounds right up his alley.
I leaned on that at first, but I thought, man, Johnson might.
He's probably the red herring, though. I think.
Well, yeah. I'm leaning on Johnson. I'm gonna go with Johnson. Final answer.
Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Yes, sir.
All right. So unfortunately, neither one of you were correct.
Damn.
Wow.
The red herring was actually LBJ, because this is a guy who notoriously would like just whip out his penis at parties and stuff like that.
Yes.
Mind you, this was still going on. He was doing this while he was president in the 1960s, which was just after Juan de Fuca stopped being made. This is not too long ago where he was whipping out. He even had a name for it. Yes, he did. Called it Dumbo.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The things that would happen to him in 2024. But yeah, that was his little party trick, man. Was he would do it. But no, it wasn't Lyndon Baines Johnson. Teddy Roosevelt, I imagine, did some skinny dipping in his life as he was kind of cruising national parks and stuff like that. But no, it wasn't Teddy Roosevelt. It was actually John Quincy Adams. Adams. With daily ritual. For the entire time that he lived in Washington, which he's still the only president to serve as president and then later go back and serve in the House of Representatives. He was a congressman after he left the presidency.
That's cool.
So interesting enough. And then Andrew Jackson was crazy, but apparently getting naked in the Potomac was not part of that part of his regimen that we know of.
That we know of.
Yeah, that we know of.
Man,
maybe they all did it, and
segment.
it just wasn't documented.
This is a really cool segment. I always dig. It's fun. I look forward to it. I look forward to listening to it. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to kind of go back and find interesting bits of trivia and stuff like that. Some of them are like, I mean, some of them are just great stories that I love retelling over and over again. The one thing about Andrew Jackson that I love is that he was so fucking crazy that he actually attacked his would-be assassin.
Yeah.
And was beating him so severely that the president, who had just had an assassination attempt, had to be pulled off of the person he was attacking because he was about to kill him. So, I mean, Andrew Jackson, not necessarily the model president by any stretch of the imagination, but he as I like to say, man, they just don't make them like they used to.
They sure don't.
So.
Oh man, penicillin is different today.
But again, I keep politics out of this, man. So no matter where you fall on any, right or left or whatever, we do wish former President Trump a swift recovery from
seriously
assassination attempt.
Terrifying that like happened modern day.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, I'm sure we'll learn more in the coming weeks and days and months and stuff, but it's just remarkable to me that someone could get that close with a firearm to the president. Yeah.
Like somebody messed up.
Yeah.
You can't even get to Beyonce, if you wanted to, without paying a lot of money and being behind security.
Right. there's just so much that goes into security now. And people just take so many precautions and stuff. I have to say though, and I was commenting this again, the whoever took the photo, and I was scouring. Again, I could probably find it out pretty easily, but whoever took the original photo that's been blasted on social media and everything, with his Secret Service man pulling him away, his arm pulled in the air, you could see his bloody ear, and the American flag waving in the background. Whoever took that shot is gonna win the fucking Pulitzer. Like it's gonna happen. Like that is a remarkable photo. I mean, just absolutely remarkable photo.
Yeah, the composition of that photo is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm like, well, that's gonna win the Pulitzer. So
I think people are getting a little too excited about it.
National Geographic Photo of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's photography is hard. Like on a good day when you have your stuff set up, like it's hard to take a photo. As Tripp taught me the skills of taking photos, is like it's awful. It's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to catch a moment that's unexpected is really brilliant from a skill standpoint.
My brother-in-law, his hobby is I'm gonna butcher this, but is basically space photography. I'm gonna dumb this shit down. It's basically space photography or intergalactic
telescopic.
Yeah, and one of his favorite pastimes is he hunts down these eclipses. So he goes to wherever
like distant eclipses.
Yeah, so wherever they are in the world, wherever an eclipse happens in the world, he'll go and he'll photograph it.
Okay.
And so obviously Texas, as everyone knows, a couple months back was the prime spot where you could get the best. So him and my sister came to visit that week, so that was really cool. And I was thinking, okay, he's a photographer, he's going to have these massive lenses and everything. And don't get me wrong, it was a hefty lens, but I mean, it was not that big and not that long. And he had this whole setup, very intricate, obviously. And man, he's just sitting. He went to a friend of my sister's property, set up and everything like that, and he's just sitting there waiting for that moment. He starts clicking away as that sun and moon come together, and it was just. And he got it, man. He got some brilliant shots. And of course, there's a very tight-knit community, much like cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was telling me about this guy who's actually he says he's one of the best of the photographers and the guy was in some parking lot in Bedford or something, Texas, just middle of DFW. And he got it. He got this gorgeous shot. It was just unbelievable. Wow. Insane. Yeah. Just insane stuff. So cool. No, that was a little bit off. I don't know how we got there, but we got there.
I don't know either, but it was
it was this. I think we were talking about. Because we were talking about the photo of the assassination attempt on former President Trump. But that was our presidential trivia segment, which is brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. So, welcome back. Let's go ahead and get into let's go ahead and get into our next pairing here. So as we I'm about halfway through my Juan de Fuca, so I'm gonna pour something else here in just a second.
A little more than halfway, but
yeah, about the same.
Right about where Dennis is. I tend to smoke fast when I'm on a show because I'm trying to keep my cigar from going out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bad habit I have.
So I'm gonna grab a beer for my next pairing.
So excited, very excited.
But Dennis, do you have another pairing you'd like to share with us?
I do. Yeah. Let me pick up. What am I drinking right now? Oh boy, I'm drinking so many different things.
I know what that's like, man.
What's that?
I know what that's like. It's a rough life.
It can be, but it's not that rough because look at this. I love this bottle because it has
Like those geometric cuts are so cool.
It's not even regular. It's not regularly cut around. It's got
it's irregular, which makes it even cooler. Irregular geometric cuts are one of the coolest looking things in the world.
It's irregularly cut. It's got a smoke finish to the bottle, so it's got this this kind of gray,
got like a black diamond kind of look. Yeah,
almost like a black diamond kind of deal. Yeah, the camera, it's a lot more translucent than you can tell on the camera, but I love this little string. This is kind of a nice touch that they put to this on this mezcal. I really love that. And again, the label to me, it's talking about buying something based on how it looks in the packaging. The label really does it for me.
Yeah.
It's clean, it's simple. The rabbit is a classic for mezcal, as we talked about on our show earlier. And I can't get enough of this minerality and this like really interesting funk. And the way that I put it, I think makes sense. I said this is Tripp when he talks about kind of the flavor of licking a rock, which sounds
liquid
crazy,
form,
but that's the minerality that you get from this mezcal. That's so unique and so interesting because it has that. Oh God, what's it called? It has Damiana, so it has a Damiana flower in it. So I'm not feeling particularly aphrodisiazed, if you will, but
you don't feel like running in the house, just shutting your computer off?
No.
Right.
No, I'm not gonna go for a Dumbo swim.
That was great.
But it's good to have an extra paddle. You never know, you might need one.
All right, so I grabbed a beer. So this is from Martin House Brewing, who's there here in Fort Worth, Texas. They are known for their funky, weird stuff. They're the ones who came out with the Hot Cheetos beer and the Buffalo Wild.
I'm getting excited.
Yeah, the Buffalo Wild Wings beer and stuff like that. So this beer is called Congratulations, and it's got a piece of cake on it because it is a sweet and sour cake ale with lactose. Dennis, this is just for you, buddy.
I love it.
So I don't have a similar glass for it, but I do have a Rar & Sons summertime wheat glass that's been chilled. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead.
Baby mare's leg.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in there.
I haven't seen Rar & Sons in ages.
So yeah, it definitely smells like sour cake. So that's got something going for it for sure. And we'll see how this goes.
With children, obviously, sour cake has a very different smell to me now that I have kids than before children.
Sour I know what you mean.
Real thing. You know.
Oh yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you got, Tripp?
I went with some Elijah Craig small batch bourbon. Elijah Craig, the father of bourbon, as they call him, the first to char oak barrels.
Oh, that Heaven Hill, baby.
It is made by Heaven Hill. As most people probably don't know, but we definitely do. This label is covered in lies.
It is.
Elijah Craig was a big deal in bourbon. The legend is that in the 1790s, he had a fire at the distillery that burned some of his barrels, and he was in a time crunch and just was too cheap to buy new barrels. So he filled them up with whiskey, and when they got to their destination, which I think was New Orleans, the liquor had turned browner than usual, and people loved it. Unfortunately for that story and for Heaven Hill Distillery, I guess, the earliest record of a charred barrel was in 1826, about 20 years after he died. So there's very little merit to that story, but the fact remains that this is great whiskey. Elijah Craig is I mean, it's not like they're the same barrels, right?
No, it is great. It's no alligator char, but it's good whiskey.
It has nothing to do with the story. That's what I'm saying. The goodness of this whiskey is completely unrelated. They just named it after him and tell the story. So one time this was a 12-year age statement, but they got rid of that in 2016 in order to kind of extend production. And the current iteration is kind of somewhere between 8 and 12 years, people say. It is 94 proof. You can see it right there. So it's a little hotter, has a little bit more flavor. And I just love this bourbon. It's a very affordable bourbon that drinks really well, pairs really well with most cigars.
Does it taste hot?
No. I mean, it's got maybe a little bit more heat than your standard 80 proof, but not by a lot. I think they kind of balance that out with a little bit of extra sweetness in the mash bill and in the distillation to kind of balance that out a little bit, because it does drink like an 80 proof whiskey to me. And frankly, there are 80 proof whiskeys that are much hotter tasting than this.
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
I've always been surprised, like even with like lower proofed rye, how hot rye tastes in comparison to bourbon.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's just there's just a lot of heat behind it. That being said, I still love rye, but
have you had a cask strength rye?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's an experience, man.
Yeah, because that'll take you to Jupiter and back.
It's like licking a battery.
But in a good way.
And I love rye. Big fan of rye.
Yeah.
It's like licking a battery in the best way possible.
So my congratulations, sweet and sour cake ale with lactose is cloudy would be an understatement. There is a lot of sediment floating around here. The smell is definitely sour tasting to it. The taste, the flavor, however.
Have you had this before, or is tonight your first time?
Tonight would be my first time.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm very curious.
Y'all remember the beer that that Dennis gave us that one time? It was like made with clam shells and everything, and and how like that was a surprisingly fantastic tasting beer, and it was like the only beer that night that I finished. This will not be a repeat of that experience.
Can I take a guess? I'm guessing that it's overly sweet and simultaneously overly sour, and
Correct.
they just train crash into each other.
Oh
god, it's lactose and sour, like that just doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's really fucking bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna drink more of it, but mostly because, like, why not just kind of keep pattering away the experience? But I mean, this is about pairing, so like I am trying to sway my opinion of the beer by itself aside, put that
and maybe it just needs to grow on you. I mean, sometimes you don't know till you've had 3 or 4 cans.
Oh, okay.
So keep going back at it.
Okay.
We say this is in the industry, we call this growing on you like a fine moss.
Yeah. What I do like about the richness of the cigar and where we are in the cigar, because I don't know how you guys are enjoying it. The Juan de Fuca is getting a little spicier for me. Particularly on the retro. The retro is actually starting to lengthen. And so that spice is really cutting through, even though the cigar is rich, that spice is really cutting through the richness of the beer and really balancing out the sourness, surprisingly. So it's definitely, when you smoke it and then drink, the beer is not as bad. That being said, the beer is bad, but here I am still drinking it. So
you talked about the spice. I noticed, I forgot to mention it, and like I didn't want to interrupt whatever was going on at the time. In the first third, like halfway through the first third, there was a sharp drop off in spice for me. Like this cigar starts like old school Don Pepin, like really in your face.
Yeah.
Super black pepper, red pepper kind of spice.
It's probably that wrapper that we're tasting. It's probably that wrapper because it's the close foot, right?
You're probably right. And then like, yeah, that would make sense actually. Because like half an inch, maybe even an inch in, like that spice kind of dropped off and then slowly came back throughout the whole cigar.
Yeah, it's definitely back for me in a big way.
Mm-hmm. Does this cigar remind anybody else of a cigar Bear talked about in an advertisement earlier? I feel like it's high praise, but I don't feel like it's out of place to say this cigar tastes like it could be a Liga Privada. You could give this to me and trick me into thinking this is a Liga Privada that's coming out next year. With like that oiliness
yeah.
of the wrapper, that intensity.
It burns. The burn on it is absolutely Liga Privada, smoke production wise.
Did you guys happen to try the Selection de Mercado that was made for the European market?
Not yet. I actually just got one the other week. That I think Dennis may have gotten too, right? So I was thinking we could do a show with that.
Oh yeah, I do have one actually. Good point. Thanks, Tripp.
Well, I don't. Okay, so I won't go into too much detail about that, my opinion or about it, the cigar, because I don't want to ruin the experience for you or necessarily influence it. But yeah, like I think the Selection de Mercado is it doesn't taste like any other Liga product that you've ever had. Like I'll go ahead and say that.
Okay.
Like much more different than the T52. A lot more, like much more earthiness. And I think that this cigar, the Juan de Fuca, if we're talking about it in the Liga conversation, fits somewhere in between that T52 Liga space.
Yeah.
I
think
not quite as spicy as that T52, not quite that Havana stock cut.
Yeah. But it's in that vein, right?
Yeah.
I do have to say though, we have to start talking shit about this cigar and stop liking it so much because Arnold's now watching.
Okay.
We don't want him to get a big head, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, we could go back to the conversation, which puts me on the fence about the label. But just kidding. The I love the stories behind it and everything. Now that Arnold's watched, we can kind of rehash that a little bit. But the cigar is tasting really phenomenal, and thankfully it's saving me from this beer. So,
I mean, that's something that we notice a lot is like a bad cigar can really elevate. I mean, sorry, a good cigar can really elevate a bad pairing, or a good pairing can really elevate a bad cigar. Like it can transform something that's bad to at least decent
and
tolerable.
Similarly, in that vein, right, it can be the exact opposite. Very much so, where the pairing or the cigar can take away from one or the other.
Yeah,
I've had many cigars that ruined a beer, or a beer that ruined a cigar.
Have you guys ever had a Grand Cru beer?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big fan.
So I had a Imperial Grand Cru from a company that's actually now unfortunately has gone out of business, which I was really sad about. No. Deep Ellum Brewing Company is no longer making beer, which is sad. Or they might be doing it in a smaller scale. But man, I loved their summertime IPA. Man, was fucking good. Like it was actually a good IPA. And they had another one called the Tangerine IPA, which was just delicious. I think it tastes like fucking orange juice. It was great. But they had a grain that just really reminds me of this beer. It was very sour. There's a lot of, and I'm getting it right now. There's this kind of grapiness in the beer, like sour grapes. That creaminess is still hitting the palate, which is that lactose, obviously. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had birthday cake this week because it was my son's birthday today. It was my son's birthday today, so we had birthday cake last night, and I made that cake, and I'm not the greatest baker in the world, but it's vastly superior to this beer. Just...
Listen, I will say this: cigars aside, when you talk about beers that have lactose, you're always going to be in for an experience where your palate is going to be completely coated. Yeah, there are certain scotches we talk about that coat your palate in a similar way, and certain cigars that do the same thing, where it kind of muffles everything else that you have with it or after it, and you need something else to cut it through. So I'm less of a fan of lactose in beers when I'm smoking a cigar, specifically. Yeah. It's just hard. It's a hard pairing. It's not impossible, but it is hard.
Yeah, God. Well, I try to focus my attention away from it. God, it's really bad, guys. Tripp, what is your next pairing?
All right, my next one. I just had it on the show last week, but I was a big fan. and it's already, I've taken a sip and it's working phenomenally with this cigar. This is called Death
you
and
dirty
Renewal
girl.
Weizenbach, sorry. This is from Mythic Brewing. They are the word that they don't like to use is gypsy brewing. They call themselves a phantom brewery with no physical location. So they're actually in Florida. And most of their beers are made here.
Popular term.
No, yeah, Nomad is the other popular term these days. I kind of like the name Phantom Brewery though. That's cool. So
it's very spooky.
Yeah, exactly. They're very small. They started in 2022 and they've only, I mean, they have maybe like 8 beers that I can find information on. So they're not huge. I just happened to see this at a liquor store and was like, man, that's a cool label, and it's the most craft looking thing in this store, so I'll try it out.
So like, are they having their beers made at another brewery? Is it kind of some okay?
And one of the big advantages of being a, as they call a phantom brewery, is that you're not bound to a brewery. So the way that they work is they come up with an idea, they approach a brewery or two and find who they want to work with on this, and then they have them make it, package it, and they do the distribution.
Got it. Interesting. Okay.
This is very much like my thing.
Well, not too dissimilar from a lot of cigar companies, you know, where they have
absolutely, yeah.
So
yeah, and very similar to the Nomad brewing scene, you have companies that work with one brewery all the time. Like I mean, Tatuaje is a great example of that in cigars.
Right.
And then you have companies more like, who's somebody who uses different factories all the time?
Foundation. So like
Foundation is a great one. They just kind of, they hunt down a brewery and they say, I really like what you're making. Can you make a beer for me? And they kind of spec it out for them and then come up with a recipe, and then the brewery takes care of the rest, the actual production side of things. A lot of these companies typically do a home brew first as a pilot, and then once they come up with a recipe, they give that to a bigger brewery so that they can make a production run.
Mass produce it, yeah.
To be fair, this is not exactly quite the same as like what you would consider a white label, where you go to a distillery and say, hey, just make a thing, put my label on it, and that's it. There's much more hands-on in the brewing scene with this kind of a process, and it's actually a process that I've been pursuing for a couple of years now for my own homebrew stuff.
Yeah,
nice.
So Mythic Brewing with no Mythic is spelled wrong. MYTHK. All consonants, no vowels.
It's a Mythic.
But this is Death and Renewal. They named it in reference to and I forgot to put his name, but I butchered it last time I tried to say it anyway. Tangisnir. Did I say that right, Dennis?
Yeah, Tangisnir. It's one of the two.
Yeah, so one of the two goats that pulls Thor's chariot. All of their stuff with the name Mythic is kind of mythical Norse mythology influence. So this is one of the two goats that pulls Thor's chariot. And every night he slays the goat and eats it. Every morning he uses the power of Mjolnir to restore it so that he can ride off to his next destination. So they called it Death and Renewal, and it's got a picture of a goat. The reason they chose that is because Bock beers, which this is a Bock style beer, have kind of always used goats in their labeling. Yeah. And they just thought of a mythical goat and came up with a cool story that went along with it.
Nice.
Which I thought was really interesting. So this is a Weizenbach, which is kind of a wheat beer that is made to taste more like a Bock. So it's kind of dark and sweet, but also a wheat beer.
Nice.
This one is brewed by Sideward Brewing. They're in Orlando, Florida, and it clocks in at 7.4% ABV.
Nice. What was the name of the goat again?
Angusnir.
Angusnir. So Thor could slay Angusnir right now. Drop some of that fresh blood and other guts into this beer, and it would probably improve it.
I mean, that's mythical blood we're talking about.
If I may interject, you all remember The Walking Dead, right?
Sure.
There was a brewery in Philly for Walking Dead season, whatever, 4, 3, or something like that, early on.
I'm guessing 3, the one where they were on the farm. Maybe that was 2.
Maybe it was 3, but they made a beer that used they used brains and other parts from I forget what animal, but from some animal.
I would drink that.
And it was popular. It was really well received. But they used, similar to what we talked about, the Rocky Mountain oyster stouts, adding that into a beer. They did that kind of a thing, but with organs.
That's crazy and awesome.
Yeah, that would taste better than what I'm drinking. Wow. All right. Well, on that note, as I mentioned, today is my son's birthday. He's 9 years old, so can't believe I have a 9-year-old. Very proud of him today. I'm proud of him every day, but very proud of him today. He had such a good time. And for the second straight year, and we've gone a couple times for it, but he absolutely loves it. And my son loves building things. He's my little master builder. Loves to construct anything, but he loves Legos. And so we went to Legoland, which is just a really great experience. It's a lot of fun. They have so many stations where kids can create things and build things, and they have these mini rides, and it's just a really fun time. And then they have like a playground inside too. I mean, it's a kid's dream house. It's just so much fun. They even have a splash pad outside, which unfortunately had been broken the last 2 years. So I was like, oh, there's no way that's fixed. But unfortunately it was. And I didn't bring the proper attire for any of the kids. But nonetheless, we had a great time. And who wants to be in the Texas heat anyway? It was great to be inside indoors and stuff like that. So my question was to you. I mean, both of you all have small children, but it doesn't have to be a memory from one of your kids' birthdays. It could be from when you were a kid too. What's the coolest kid's birthday venue or location that you've ever been to?
Oh boy.
I'm not sure I have one. Because typically my wife does the birthday parties. At least most of the time.
Okay.
Where have I been for a birthday party? I've been to a gymnastics place. I've been to a different gymnastics place.
Those are always fun. Don't flip around and stuff. Trampolines.
I'm trying to think if there's any that had beer. There was one that was like a little play place. They had like it was very small inside in a strip mall. Had like tumbling mats and stuff like that for them to play on, and some toys and a zip line and stuff. But they had a liquor store next door, so I went liquor shopping while the kids were at the birthday party.
As one does.
Well, what about when you were a kid? What was like one of the fun places that you remember going?
My favorite was always going to the movies. I loved it. Birthday party where you went to the movies.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one. It was a place in Portland. We did my kid's birthday there a couple times. And it was, I mean, I'm sure they're everywhere. But it was basically a bunch of bouncy castles, like, those big inflatable things.
Yeah.
It was like 10 of them inside this big warehouse.
That's awesome.
And then they had a bunch of trampolines and stuff like that too. And the kids went ham wild at this place.
Nice.
One might even say buck wild. I wouldn't.
Buck wild.
Somebody might.
Oh boy.
What about you, Dennis?
I mean, if we're going on the beer thing, I would say my backyard. Because there's a ton of space. It's just expansive.
I thought you were gonna say there's a ton of beer.
Well, there was a ton of, but the thing is, the last couple of parties that we've had at our house for the kids, really, I've made it a point to have something on tap, and so the last year's party for our daughter, we had beer on tap. We brought over a full kegerator setup, had that outside, and it was beer that obviously I made, my neighbor and I made. And it's always been a kind of a cool tradition to have for every party to when we invite people over to have something that's whether it was I did a cider, I did a couple of different beers. I did the watermelon wheat, which was I used watermelon Jolly Ranchers as an ingredient in my secondary.
Of course you did.
Well, but you know what? It was fantastic. It was a wheat.
I'm sure it tasted better than this shit. Yeah.
Somehow I got away with making a Breaking Bad reference to the label. The label was a watermelon, but it had the hat. It was Walter White's hat. It was awesome. It was really fun. But I think from my childhood, I don't know what it was called, but I will never forget this core memory of some pizza joint. It was like some kind of a pizza place that had a play area, and they hired people dressed up as Ninja Turtles to show up.
Oh, hell yeah.
It was like the coolest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Coolest, for a kid growing up in the 90s. Like, that was very cool.
Absolutely.
It's a cool thing you could do right back then.
Well, it's funny that we visited my hometown 2 weeks ago, and there's a place. It sounds like a Chuck E. Cheese that you were kind of that esque place, And it's a local chain. It's tried getting out of El Paso a few times, and there's a couple of them located all throughout Texas, probably the Southwest a little bit. But they feel like they've come to DFW a couple times and they failed, and they keep coming back and everything. But the chain is called Peter Piper Pizza.
Oh,
and nice play area like Chuck E. Cheese, a lot of video games. Ball pit when I was growing up. They don't do ball pits anymore. Skee ball, the works, And it's fun, man. My kids had a great time. But what I love about Peter Piper Pizza, man, they actually legit have fucking good tasting pizza, man. It is very iconic. It's very nostalgic for me. It has a very distinct flavor and taste, and it is so good. It was so great to go back there. Really enjoyed it. Love throwing the Parmesan, a little crushed red pepper on it. It's outstanding.
They got that real shitty Parmesan.
Yeah.
But, you love it.
But it makes it taste good. Well, I really enjoy Peter Piper Pizza. It's fantastic, and kids had a blast. So good times. Well, I have put down that beer because I can't do it anymore. And I know Dennis is on a time crunch. So let's keep this moving along here. I've got my third pairing ready to go. But before we get into that, let's get into one of our next sponsored segments, which is always brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. Now, both you guys have participated in this before, so you know the point of it. But I thought I would choose just kind of switch things around a little bit. And because pairings are y'all's thing, and it has to do with the beverage that you're partaking in, I thought it would be a good time to reflect on not necessarily the cigar or even the pairing necessarily, but the beverage that you had in a quiet moment to yourself. You weren't sharing a drink with anybody. You weren't in some kind of community event. It was just you, a cigar, and a particular beverage that just really stood out. I know you probably have had several of those. It could be recent, it could be up to you, but just a moment like that whenever you're ready.
I got to think for a minute. I got a bad memory when it comes to on the spot.
I'm trying to remember the cigar that I had, but I distinctly recall that I had Glenmorangie's Milchon, if you guys remember that at all. Mm-hmm. That was the red pinstripe box, and the Milchon was designed kind of to be evocative of like the old candy shop. So it was very sweet Scotch, very interesting. I don't even know how you would call it, sort of like toffee flavors, if you will. But the cigar, I can't remember. It must have been, maybe it was a Jason, actually. The first release of the Jason, not any of the Redux or anything else. But that, for whatever reason, I was really getting down on the monsters at the time, and I was by myself, and it was just kind of like I had a couple hours to just sit and do nothing, which especially nowadays is very rare with kids. This was years ago before kids. That was a very special moment. And of course, I can't get the scotch anymore because it's discontinued. So.
I'm trying to remember the beer that I had. I may have to pick a different time. Oh, I've got a good one. All right. So it would have been 2008. I was meeting up for Herf with some buddies at a bar. At this time, I worked at a call center, and I hadn't found out I was getting laid off, but I didn't know I was about to get laid off. And I worked 5 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Jesus.
And I lived an hour away on the other side of town. We were trying to buy a house at the time. Things were tough. And getting off at 2 p.m., I was 15 minutes from the cigar bar, maybe less than that, maybe 10 minutes, but an hour from home. So I went to the cigar bar 2 hours before anybody else got there. And I filled out my job application for a job that I ended up getting the day that I had my interview for this job the day I found out I was getting laid off from the job I was at.
Oh, wow.
And it was great because I had a real shitty job at a call center, and I got a job at a great call center where I got paid a lot more money, and I got promoted a little while later.
Nice.
And it ended up, setting my career path kind of. It was a big deal. But I specifically remember I was smoking a Don Pepin Blue, drinking a glass of Lafroig, and filling out this job application while I was waiting for my buddies to show up.
There you go. Nice. Nice. Dennis? What was yours? What was yours again? I'm sorry.
Oh, that was the Glenmorangie Milchon with a what was it? Jason.
A Jason.
That's right. And this is what you wanted to show us earlier. You just sent it to me.
Oh yeah, so I just wanted you to see the label, the early phase of the label. It's not the final version, but that's
it's pretty good.
Probably some copyright infringement here and there, but that's okay between friends.
Maybe. Love the design though.
But it was a great beer, it went over really well. I was very nervous about people liking it. I had another beer that was a Saison. And people like both beers, and it's just a really special thing when you can share something with people that are not necessarily there for that. When your buddies come over to have a cigar and have a drink, that's different. When people show up to your house and you casually just say, hey, if you want to have this thing, you can try, and they really enjoy it, or they're even willing to try it. It's a very nice feeling.
Don't give them the beer that I was drinking.
No, maybe time we will.
What's funny is that you probably would like this. That's the funny part.
I highly doubt it.
I highly doubt it. With the amount of sweetness in there, I don't think you would.
I've been poo-pooing the lactose, man, for years. I just can't get down on anymore. And hoppy beers with lactose is a whole other diatribe for another show.
God, I would kill for some fucking bitter hops in that beer. Jesus. Something to cut that. God bless. It's God bless. So Dennis, what third pairing did you bring to the show?
I'm trying to keep it easy since I've been cranking on these pairings for the last couple hours. So being that I have to go to work very soonish. I have here it is. An Athletic Brewing Lemon Radler.
Ooh, those are good.
You've had this one.
I've had Radler beers. I love Radler.
Oh, okay.
I love Radlers. Yeah, they're fantastic.
This one is awesome. Like really nice and a little more sour than you would expect off the bat, but it's really nice once you get into it.
I think it's again one of those things where you don't have that alcohol to fight the sourness, which is why you end up with more sour than you expect.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely agreed.
When I went to Germany a few years ago, even though it was like winter, and I had my share of darker, more robust beers, and warming beers and things like that. They still had some Radlers on menus, and I still drank a couple of those, and they're outstanding, absolutely outstanding.
Radler is a great style, man. I mean, I think what's that? Lennon Kugel.
Leinenkugel, yeah.
Leinenkugel is a shandy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very close to
They've
that.
kind of ruined that style, I think, for the masses a little bit by oversaturating.
Over-sweetening, really, I think.
They have this English nut brown ale that I think is their most superior beer, and it's probably the beer that gets drank the least amount. Yeah, the summer shandy, the berry vice, yeah, just oh man, yeah, yeah, just Leinenkugels, but yeah, their nut brown ale, fantastic. It is absolutely sensational.
I haven't had that one. I've had
It's
a
really
couple of
fucking
different shandies.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember seeing the nut brown from them. I'll keep an eye out.
Well, it doesn't taste anything like. I mean, if you drank it, if I handed it to you blind, you'd be like, and I told you it was Leinenkugel, you'd probably laugh at me because it just doesn't taste like it for any reason whatsoever. I am with my last third. I went to a whiskey, a very popular whiskey in this neck of the woods from Firestone and Robertson Distilling Company, TX blended whiskey.
Nice. I've had
very,
that.
very,
Good,
very,
good
very
whiskey.
popular here in Fort Worth, Texas. That's where they're from, obviously. There's a lot of really nice, a really nice sweetness to this particular whiskey. Even though despite the much sweetness that I just had in that beer, thank God this whiskey is made really well. So there's enough strength to kind of kick some of that cloyingness out. Despite that, TX is known for having, when you compare it to other whiskeys, even blended or not, or other bourbons, it tends to be a lot sweeter. There's a lot of banana to it. One might call it clove. It's a lighter drinking whiskey. It doesn't quite sting on the back of the palate as much. It's very, very smooth. Goes down very easy, which is why it's probably incredibly
popular. Do you think I'll be traveling, I'll be in Austin in October. Do you think I'll be able to find them in the shop somewhere in Austin?
No, but what you really want to try, man, and it's gonna cost you, but they're so goddamn good. And you can probably get it in New York. Their distribution has gotten a lot more broad from the first use from when I first tried it. But I actually went to the distillery in Hye, Texas, HYE. It's called Garrison Brothers.
Yeah.
Garrison.
We got a whole
Brothers.
bunch of Garrison. It's easily priced at the cheapest bottle is like $95.
Yeah, it's probably
it's not cheap stuff. Yeah, I think the cheapest stuff from them around me is like 70, 80-ish.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're way overpaying. It's just expensive whiskey.
Another whiskey you guys need to try in Texas is Balcones.
Oh, yeah. Balcones, I'm very familiar. They're awesome.
Yeah, Baby Blue, their corn whiskey is really good. They have a single malt, which is nice. They have one that's made with local honey too, but it's not like drinking Jack Daniel's Tennessee honey. It's
different kind of honey.
It's a very much more subtle too.
You said this was the TX blended, right?
This is TX blended. That's correct.
Yeah, you should be able to get this, Dennis. They do distribute near me.
Interesting. Okay.
So you may be able to find it in your neck of the woods.
All right. So with that, it's time to bring back our rapid fire segment for this, or we'll call this or that. Easy enough. I give you a list of two things and you pick one. So this is all about stuff that we're pairing with cigars. Okay. So not necessarily not something you would drink on your own and which you prefer on their own, but how you feel that they pair with cigars. Okay. So let's start with caffeinated beverages versus non-caffeinated beverages. Now, I think there's a lot more non-caffeinated, including the whiskey and beers that we're drinking. So caffeinated or non-caffeinated?
This is a hard decision for me because every morning, pretty much every morning, I'm pairing some kind of caffeinated beverage, whether it's an energy drink or a coffee or something in between like Starbucks, with a cigar. But I also really like a boozy pairing. I'm gonna go non-caffeinated.
Non-caffeinated. Dennis?
And we're talking for just like a everyday kind of pairing. If I had a choice between the two.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Non no, I would say caffeinated. I think I'm leaning more on the caffeinated. I'm just so used to having cigars with coffee, with tea, even. You'd be surprised, but certain teas work really well with cigars as well.
Okay, well that goes into our next question: coffee or tea to pair with cigars?
Tea. So are we talking classic tea, or are we talking like rooibos and
Open to interpretation.
Any
However
tea.
you want to. Yeah.
yerba mate? All right, yerba mate cold brew. I can't even say cold brew. Cold brewed yerba mate. I do it the night before in a big old like French press, and then I'll squeeze it out in the morning, and then add some lemon and some agave syrup.
Okay.
I'm going coffee.
Yeah.
I'm a coffee guy, not a tea guy.
I love tea.
I
but
haven't experienced enough tea to become a tea guy yet.
You gotta get down on the yerba, man.
I drank a lot.
I do like yerba.
I drank a lot of tea when I went to Scotland last year in the mornings. They have coffee, and I had my my share of coffee as well. But I drank a lot of black tea when in Rome, So I drank a lot of tea, and I smoked a lot of cigars with those teas. So it was pretty damn good. But I'm definitely a coffee guy myself. So, all right, this one's a lot more broad. So it's up to interpretation. Dark or clear beverages?
Dark always.
Yeah.
The only thing I like that's clear is gin and water.
And mezcal.
Some mezcals, yeah.
Some mezcal.
I prefer browner mezcals.
Yeah, same here with tequila and mezcal.
As I sip on my mezcal, I have to lie to my mistress in this glass and say dark for me as well.
All right. Here's a classic one. Bourbon or scotch?
Easy, scotch.
Scotch for me, man.
Really? I did not think easy. Okay. It was really funny.
Scotch has so much more range than bourbon.
It certainly does. I'll give you that. So what I think is interesting about this, it was an interview that Eric Gatormson did with Casey Hogan of Crux Cigars a few years back. And I remember because Casey is a scotch drinker, and he very famously doesn't really like bourbon, which is bizarre to me. But he very famously doesn't like bourbon. So on the show, they had him smoke a cigar with bourbon. So they gave him bourbon specifically to see if he would like any of them, or he would prefer them over his classic, his favorite scotch or whatever. And he found one that he enjoyed, but it still didn't compare to scotch, which was interesting. And I thought that it kind of made him an outlier, particularly. But I was not expecting that from y'all. But
I love bourbon. I'm like, back to the last question. I'm a brown drink guy. I got a ton of bourbon and whiskey and rum and scotch and Irish whiskey, but scotch is always my first go-to.
Nice,
because there's just nothing like it.
Bourbon is also, to be fair, kind of a lot less susceptible to specific regional qualities that Scotch really sticks out with. And I think that's kind of what, to Tripp's point, is it has more range. Scotch does.
Gin or vodka?
Gin, 100%. If I'm getting a mixed drink that has vodka, I'm ordering it with gin. Every time.
Yeah, I'm gin as well.
I'll take a red snapper. I'll take a gin martini. I'll take a gin and tonic.
Bloody Caesar.
Beer or spirits?
See, this one's harder. This one's much harder for me.
Spirits for me.
Yeah, I think spirits. Because you can always...
Would you say that that's changed for you? I think you guys were more beer guys back in the day.
No, I believe it or not, there was a time where I drank whiskey. I like Jack and Cokes. I like Lefroy. I had never tasted a beer I liked.
Interesting. Okay.
It wasn't until I was 22 or 3. So I'd been drinking for only a year, Mom. And all the beers I had ever tasted were disgusting. I hated them, so I just drank whiskey. And then I moved to Portland, and my father-in-law told me that there was some beer that I had to try, and I don't remember what it was. And that was the beer that changed everything, where I was like, this is what beer can taste like? And then that like turned me around, and now I enjoy just about any type of beer. But I think I still go spirits.
Okay. Okay. Let's wrap up these last two questions. And because I know Dennis has a hard stop that we've gone a little bit past. So, Dennis, I'll get you out of here in just a second.
Yeah,
This
no.
last segment is Everybody Eats, sponsored by Postania Cigars. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Great cigars. The Postania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Postania, everybody eats. So the question is this, for you guys in particular: what is the best experience that you've had with food and beverage, or one of the most memorable that you can remember, where food and beverage alike paired so well together? Maybe it was the company, but mostly the food and the beverage.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm gonna
I
get
mean,
in
you were
trouble.
fucking there, dog.
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying it. This is the reason why I'm gonna get in trouble. I joke, but it's a when I proposed to my wife in Vegas, I took her out to dinner to Bazaar Meat.
Okay.
And it was such a really amazing. It was our first time there. Such an amazing special experience. But then because I'm in Vegas for work and for other cigar stuff, right? I'm in Vegas a lot. So anytime I'm in Vegas, I always go to Bazaar Meat, and I always go through their cocktail selection, their spirit selection, their wine selection. Every single time, it is such a great experience between the food, between the pairings. The last time that we were all there at PCA, it was incredible. Minus the one cocktail that I had that was a little bit rough, but I
Is
needed.
that the consomme one?
It was the consomme. It was a good cocktail, but it was like one of those things. It's a one and done. To Bill's point.
Absolutely.
It's like watching Passion of the Christ. You're like, I can only do that once. Great film. Well made.
Well, you can only die so many times.
Yeah.
Yep, same meal. Nothing has compared to that on either a food or a cocktail level. There are places that are close with cocktails, but I've never been somewhere that put so much thought and effort into their cocktails.
Yeah, I agree. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Yeah, just all around. I actually had a mocktail that night, and I thought it was still sublime. Actually, I had two mocktails. So Coop and I actually traded them. There was only two on the menu, and he got one and I got the other. And I was like, man, his looks so much better than me. But then I tasted mine. I was like, damn, that's really good. If I go back though, I'm gonna have mine with the meal, because I had mine pre-dinner, and I was like, man, this is really good. But this would have gone really well with some of those meat dishes.
I do wish I had gotten a different cocktail during the meal, because I got that like frozen caipirinha.
Yeah.
Yeah, table
which was awesome. It was
what a great
so
experience.
Good.
Yeah, definitely.
It didn't go with the meal as well as some of those cocktails would have.
For sure. Okay. Awesome.
Or the 40 ounces of Wagyu that we all ate. Whatever it was.
I think it was more than that.
Something ridiculous.
It was
a lot. But damn, that was good.
A lot of meat. Yeah, still the best meal I've ever had.
This is crazy. As great as that steak was, it was unbelievable, man. That Iberico ham was one of the best tasting bites I've ever had. One of the best tasting bites of food I've ever had.
Well said. It is a bite.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth it.
All right. All right. Well, that will leave us to our last question of the evening. And then we'll give our final thoughts on the cigar and pairings. Pick our favorite pairing. I guess everybody knows which one I won't be picking. But it's the last question of the night is brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park. 9 consecutive years to the consensus top 3. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So, without further ado, gentlemen, I'd like to know this. Whiskey is off the table. All whiskeys, Scotch, bourbon, whatever is off the table. But I think I know what Tripp's choice is going to be just based on our conversations tonight and previous conversations too. But beer and whiskeys are off the table.
Okay.
What alcoholic beverage would you like to create and bring to market? You've got the money. Money is no object.
Gin. I would love to make a gin. Just the thought of comparing different recipes of gin and zeroing in on the one I like. Man, that really feels pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. As I'm sipping, I'm finishing my drink of this, but mezcal.
Mezcal.
I knew you were going to say that.
50% mezcal. I had this fever dream where, it's a long story, but I had this weird fever dream about making mezcal, going into the business unexpectedly by making it at home, and then making it so popular that suddenly the cartel wants me to make it for them. So I'm traveling to Mexico to show them how to make the same stuff so they don't kill me and my family. The old origin story, the classic.
Do it for the kids. Yeah.
Man, I just realized the movie I should have done for my one for the road in our show. That reminded me of
Dennis Goes to Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Great film.
So tequila is probably the more natural choice for me. I would absolutely do it, but cognac.
Oh, cognac.
I am a sucker for cognac. I absolutely adore it. I think cognac pairs incredibly well with cigars. I love it on its own. I love it neat. It just absolutely sings. I think you have to do it very gingerly, but a cognac cocktail is usually very outstanding. It's interesting. Cognac specifically, really genuine cognac is made specifically from champagne grapes.
Yeah.
But there's this old movie, with Humphrey Bogart, and it's been remade a few times. In fact, very recently, Liam Neeson reprises as the character Marlowe in a movie that's available on Amazon Prime right now. And it's in the first scene where he's a private detective. I'm pulling up the title. I'm drawing a blank.
Okay. Sorry.
But
it's very familiar.
It's with Lauren Bacall, and not the first one. It's not Good Night and Good Luck. And here we go. And see if I can pull this up here. It's not the Maltese Falcon, obviously not Casablanca. It's To Have and Have Not was the first Bacall Bogart movie. That's where they actually met. The Big Sleep is what it's called. The Big Sleep.
Okay.
Yes, 1946. So yeah, can't believe I was drawing a blank, but I rewatch it quite a bit. I love that film. But the opening scene, he's meeting with a retired general who wants him to take a case. And the retired general is an elderly man, completely sick, not completely invalid, but he's in a wheelchair. He has no more movement in his legs. Very sick man. Can't drink, can't smoke anymore, but loves to be around it. So he tells Humphrey Bogart to light up a cigarette and to drink, and he pours him some brandy. But if you zero in, it's interesting enough. If you zero in on the bottle in the film, it's actually cognac. And the general very famously says, because he says, "How do you like your brandy, sir?" He says, and Bogart says with just a touch of sarcasm, "In a glass." and without skipping a beat, the general says, I always liked mine with champagne. I would drink brandy and champagne, cold as Valley Forge, as he put it. Very old timey phrase. I loved it. The historian in me just loved the imagery from that expression. So I tried it. I tried cognac and champagne paired together.
It's fantastic.
And it's fucking outstanding.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It is fucking outstanding. Not to, you don't mix them together, but drinking them side by side, and it is absolutely fucking outstanding.
So let me ask this. I know very little about cognac. I'm at cognac where I was with rum years ago, where it was like, yeah, Bacardi and what's that one with the spices?
Captain Morgan,
Captain
baby.
Morgan.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, I don't like
in it.
rum. I've had those. I don't like rum.
I like Captain Morgan, ironically enough, but yeah.
But like, I don't know anything. I see Arnold and Jared going off about cognac. I've had like the base level Hennessy and Courvoisier, and I was like, I don't think I like this. Is there a cognac I should go try?
Remy Martin, buddy. XO.
Okay.
Remy Martin, or Remy Martin 1797.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
That shit's fucking fantastic.
I grew up around cognac with members of my family. For every meal, it would either be vodka or cognac, always. And every single meal, every course had its own. You would have a glass with or a shot if it was vodka, whatever it was. But every course had that. And as I got older and I could sit down at the table and have a drink, my go-to was always cognac, and it was fantastic every time. And my love for cognac grew based on my experiences growing up and seeing people drink it and hearing the stories about it. It was very special for me.
Yeah,
Jay says next time I'm in Dallas, he's gonna make me spend a lot of money on cognac, and I'll be won over. And Arnold says try Barrilito rum. I do need to try that. I've never heard of it. I'll check it out. But it's not that I don't like rum now. I love rum now, but there was a time where I was so uneducated that I tried garbage and was like, yeah, I don't like that because I've tried the garbage version of it. Mm-hmm. Like Flor de Caña for me was the turnaround at rum.
Same. All right, same for us. I think the same time actually.
Yeah, when we were in Nicaragua the first time and we tried it, we were like, wow, how is rum this good? And I mean, similar to the way that I got into beer and scotch, it was like once I tried the correct one, my eyes were opened. I could see color. Mm-hmm. And then I could go back and experience the stuff that was shitty and be like, yeah, this is shitty, but I understand why now.
I mean, one of the most cliche rums that I love, and I like the estate aged
Jamaican
is Appleton.
Yeah,
I fucking love that shit. It's so good.
I mean,
it's very cliche. Probably my guilty pleasure with rum is Cruzan Blackstrap rum.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff is so goddamn rich. You could drizzle that shit on pancakes, man. It's so goddamn good.
So it's safe to say that you're leaning on the industrial side of rums versus agriculture.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've explored a lot of whiskey. I've explored a lot of tequila. I've gotten into a lot of gins, like a lot of what you would call those like boutique of all those different ranges, Rum is something I've never really explored that much. I like it just fine. Have a couple of bottles on hand typically. But it's just not my, it's not like, hey, let's take a deep dive into this.
I mean, it's very difficult to get into a new spirit. Like bourbon has gotten much easier in the last few years with the rise of, Facebook and stuff like that, and just everybody being into it. You can ask, you can just grab a guy on the side of the street and go, "What bourbon should I try?" And
my neighbor's into it. Yeah, and he was like, "What kind of stuff do you like?" And I named some stuff. And he's like, "No, man, like tough to find stuff." And I thought I named some really good stuff, and I kind of went a little further. And he's like, "Okay, man, you need to come over and try some." I'm like, all right.
Yeah,
cool,
exactly.
Man. Yeah,
it's very easy, but with rum, brandy, gin, it's much more difficult because there's just not the same culture around it.
Yeah.
People don't get as deep into it.
Well, tequila's kind of in that infancy of of the boom of it. So like tequila and mezcal, like we're seeing that right now.
Yeah.
Like I think
you can't walk into a liquor store and say, "What do I buy?" because they don't know either.
Yeah. And I think rum is coming. Like because I mean, there's phases of everything. Rum is going to be the next thing, I would imagine. Gin's kind of there almost too a little bit. There are some boutique gin companies that are kind of doing some weird stuff, but I just don't see it being vodka.
I think vodka's had its day and it's over.
Yeah, I think vodka really. I think Grey Goose, for instance, really captured the vodka market. I think when it started getting a little crazy, like when they came out with the fucking toasted marshmallow vodka. Grey Goose did that. I think the game was over. It was like, okay, that was fun. That's cool.
And meanwhile, there are guys, friends of mine in Central Jersey that are producing vodka from an old recipe based out of peas. So it's distilled from peas, and it has a completely different profile to vodka than anything that we're used to. Potato vodka and wheat vodka
or rice, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it's interesting because it has so much more flavor than you would expect for a vodka. So if I gave it to you blind, you wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, that's a vodka for sure." You would say it's a spirit made from something, but you're not sure what it is.
Is Stoli potato or is it rice?
I think Stoli is
because Grey Goose is rice.
No, I don't remember. I want to say
I think Stoli is rice. The potato vodka is very hard to come across these days.
Chopin is potato, which is distinctly
Yeah,
different.
Chopin. Yeah, it's potato. It's good. I enjoy Chopin.
Beet vodka's coming out. That's very popular.
Beet vodka, my word.
But again, remember, these are vehicles for something else. So the perspective, I think, is really the demographic of what people are drinking. They're not drinking gin straight. They're drinking gin in a cocktail. Similarly, vodka is mostly in a cocktail. You don't often see people saying, "I'm going to have this straight," or neat, if you will.
I love gin straight.
That balance. I love gin straight as well, and I always get weird looks. Still, I get weird looks when I like my gin straight. But
that's because you won't get a weird look if you order an extra dry martini with X gin. With whatever gin you want, you say, "I want an extra dry martini." That means don't put anything in it. Just shake it up with ice and put it in a glass.
Yeah.
Make it cold and give it to me.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, the time has come. What was your favorite pairing of the night?
All mine were good. I think the shining star kind of for me is this Death and Renewal Weizenbach. It's just the sweetness of this beer, like that malty backbone, really worked with the cigar. It's not super bitter. It's very, very well balanced but intense beer, which works out with this very well balanced but intense cigar.
Nice.
Yeah, mine is actually not a pairing that I talked about. It's my fourth pairing of the night, if you will, which is this mezcal. I can't see the bottle, but it's La Escondida mezcal, which is
I love La Escondida.
Oh, you know it. Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Holy shit! I just dropped the whole bottle.
Did it spill?
No. Bottle's fine.
Okay.
Mostly empty, thankfully, and carpeted floor. But La Escondida is really cool because the history of the nod to the women that would illegally during Prohibition at the time there would sell and transport mezcal at the cost of ultimately their lives at that time. It was pretty cool.
Very good. I really enjoyed my first.
It was the cake beer for you, right?
No, it wasn't. Absolutely not. That I set it aside. I drank half the can. I think I did good.
You fought valiantly.
Yeah.
It was an admirable attempt.
I gotta say, listen, I like Martin House too. Like if Martin House ever watches this, they're probably gonna think that I'm such a hater. No, I love Martin House. There's a salsa verde that they make that I'm really big on. I'm really big on their creativity most of the times. Like I thought the hot Cheetos beer was fucking fantastic.
Oh, you drank it, you bastard.
So jealous. Yeah. Oh, I wanted that.
No, so here's the story, right? I know you guys wanted me to hunt that down for y'all. So I was like, couldn't find it anywhere, and I'm at a buddy's house. And he's got
and
one can.
One?
He's got one can left, and he cracks it. And I was like, dude, I gotta get some of that shit. So I tried it. They also make a best made pickle beer.
I've had a lot of good pickle beers,
and that was outstanding as well. They really do a good job there too. So that was so Martin House does a lot of good, and they're very, very, very creative. So I have to hand it to them quite a bit, just not on this one. it just was not very good at all. But no, the pairing for the night for me was the Boodles gin and tonic.
Yeah, man.
With Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic and mixed with a little bit of grapefruit seltzer, and it was absolutely outstanding. Very much a contrast, not a complement to the cigar. Really cut a lot of that richness, but really was still very nice and balanced. The brightness from the cocktail, mixed with the deep dark richness of the cigar, the spice. It really commingled well. Believe it or not, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much,
Nice.
and I enjoyed the TX as well. But I'd say that the Boodles gin and tonic was the star player tonight. So. All right. Well, so that was our show this evening, everyone. I really do appreciate everyone for participating. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Tripp. I know we went a little bit over the time that we wanted, but Dennis, thank you for hanging with us. My friend, whenever you need to bounce, you can always just take off. But again, thank you so much for kicking it with us and everything. To our audience as well for staying up late with us as always. Greatly do appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. You can always check out our YouTube channel, ELOSOFUMAR. Hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell too, so you get an alert every time there's an updated video. If you are tuning to us live on Facebook, we do broadcast live most weeks, live every Sunday at 9:30. We've got a special 300th episode coming up in just a few weeks. We're still working out the logistics and everything, but we've got some fantastic contributors to a panel that I've assembled of all cigar media. So we've got everyone represented from print media to podcast to blog to news, reviews, pairings. So hint, hint. Dennis and Tripp will be on that as well. But it's going to be a fantastic panel to celebrate my 300 episodes. So that'll be coming in a few weeks. And of course, we have a slew of guests coming up as well. So that'll be exciting. So don't forget to tune in every Sunday, 9:30 Central. Now, if you are listening to us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, the audio broadcast tonight is courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. Compassionate, great cigars. Be sure to download, subscribe, and review today. If you already are a subscriber, please hit unsubscribe, but don't forget to hit resubscribe because that actually helps my numbers. And please leave a review. And to the one guy who totally gave me a 1-star review and didn't leave me any feedback, that does nothing for me. So if you think I suck, that's totally fine, but just tell me why I do, because otherwise I can't get better at this. I mean, I'm about 300 episodes into this, man. I'm still looking to get better. So you know what? Just leave some constructive feedback next time. That's all I'm asking. You can totally tell me I suck. It's totally cool. So, but all joking aside, without further ado, it's my pleasure. This was our 296th take. It's my pleasure to host these two fine and distinguished gentlemen of Let's Get Pairing. He's Tripp Waldrop. He's Dennis Tsvang, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, as always, Barry Duplessis. And guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.